A presentation at The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, and Source for Sports Surrey. We are on the air with In Goal Radio, the podcast. Along with David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley, I'm Darren Millard. Today, we are going to chat with Curtis McElhinney, a two-time Stanley Cup champion who walked off the ice with the Stanley Cup above his head, and we will reflect on his career. A really interesting journey through the course of professional hockey, and he is bluntly honest with us about what he went through, breaking in with the Calgary Flames and then going to Columbus and Toronto and a couple of stops along the way, and finally finishing with the Tampa Bay Lightning. And one of my favorite parts about the interview discusses the use of video when you are a professional goalie. We will also tap into the gear segment over at The Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com, Source for Sports Surrey, with our friend Cam. As Woody, things are happening over there.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that's happening is they're starting to get ready for Black Friday. So keep your eyes open. I know it feels odd for me to say it this early, to start talking about Black Friday. I don't know about you guys, but if you're like me, like Halloween ends and my wife wants to put up the Christmas decorations and I have to put my foot down, and then she does it anyways. But I'm not a big fan of how we transition quickly to Christmas. So here I am telling you to get ready for their Black Friday sale. And you know why you should get ready for their Black Friday sale? Because people, if you've been paying attention to supply chain issues, to inventories, and to shipping, you better get your Christmas presents purchased around Black Friday. Don't wait too much longer than that. So double whammy here from The Hockey Shop. Make sure you keep your ears and eyes open for some of the sales and prices and specials that are coming out around Black Friday, and have that Christmas list ready to check off, because it might be a great opportunity to make sure you don't get left out in the cold buying the goalie in your life what he or she wants and having it under the tree, and also save a little money in the process. So Black Friday and Christmas really go hand in hand this year to make sure you have the presents you want. And The Hockey Shop is already busy marking down things and getting things ready behind the scenes for Black Friday at the end of this month.
Yeah, it's coming up in a couple of weeks. You know who could use a gift right now is Alexander Georgiev. Can we send him an in-goal hoodie, an in-goal coffee mug, something, Hutch, just to cheer up the Ranger goaltender?
Send him a couple of defensemen.
A couple of defensemen, couple of forwards, some special thing to slow down Connor McDavid. Wasn't that an amazing goal that we saw last night? My favorite part is just looking at the screen caps that people are putting out on Twitter, saying, imagine what happened 2 seconds after this moment when he's got four guys draped all over him.
Right.
Poor guy. I don't know. Woody's got the whole stock of hoodies. I would be happy to send him one. But at least the guy's going to get his 15 minutes of fame here, because he is all over the internet.
I would have brought him one in person, but I wasn't allowed to see him when the Rangers were in town. So, listen, and isn't that the worst thing as a goaltender? Like, because 1-on-4, like, you're not setting up you're not playing that like a breakaway. Like, you're trying to be ready, but it's 1-on-4. And the next thing you know, the guy's basically circles or hash mark down a breakaway with all that speed, and it's Connor McDavid. You've got no backwards flow. Like, you're not playing that like a breakaway, and it comes out of nowhere as a breakaway. It's Connor freaking McDavid. Like, I feel like the goalie union has to file a grievance at this point against this guy. Like, get him out. He's like a cheat code. It's like a video game out there. But yeah, man, what a goal. And yeah, tough night for Georgie, who, again, we've said it before on this podcast, he's a hell of a goalie. He just keeps getting stuck behind some of the best in the world, first in Lundqvist and then in Shesterkin. And so opportunities are tough to come by. But I watched this guy practice. I watched Georgie practice for 4 days here in Vancouver. And actually, I got to tell the story. I meant to tell the story, and I forgot to tell you guys. So Woody's going to ramble. It was beautiful. Benoit Allaire wasn't on this trip, guys. So ahead of that start in Edmonton, they skated here in Vancouver the day before. I went out and watched, and Shesterkin's down doing his thing and Georgie's doing his thing. And the team practice, and this is after a long practice, but the team practice shifted down to Shesterkin's end. You know how it is. It goes from one end to the other. So while everyone was down at Shesterkin's end, Georgiev grabbed some pucks, grabbed the skills coach, and set up drills. Set up drills himself, walked the skills coach through where to shoot from, how he wanted the shots, what he was working on, when to shoot, and basically conducted his own little goalie camp at his end of the ice while Shesterkin was facing the team shots at the other end. We've talked about that before. It's something I've seen Mikey DiPietro do. Like, And I loved it. It brought a massive smile to my face. Here's this guy after 4 days in Vancouver, last practice, and he's making sure that he's taking advantage of every sort of opportunity and downtime to keep getting better. And I'm telling you, I watch these drills, like his edge work and his patience and his movement. He's a good goalie, just got thrown into a tough spot in Edmonton.
No minute of ice time is wasted. And that's by the players that are on the ice the most. That's really impressive, Hutch.
There's so many lessons if you're privileged enough to be able to watch an NHL skate, as you guys certainly do a lot more than me, but I've enjoyed it too, is how these guys take advantage of the situation and how much it resembles some of the things that you hear minor hockey goaltenders and parents complaining about. I don't get enough time with a goaltending coach. Well, guess what? Here was a situation where an NHL goaltender had to sort out some drills on his own, or they just leave my kid alone down at the other end of the ice while the practice is happening here. Here's another example of the same situation in the NHL. I still remember, I probably told it before, being with my very young son at the time who was going through one of those moments he didn't want to do a couple of drills on the ice because I already know how to do that, quote unquote. And then we're in a practice and we see Ryan Miller skate out and start to do the most basic skating drills all on his own at the other end of the ice while the practice is going on down on our end. The pros do it just like we do. They just, they've had a whole lifetime of experience to understand what the game is like and how it works and how to own their own game and their own development. It's really impressive to see. I enjoy the opportunities to see these practice skates as much, in many times more than actually going to a game, because you get to see the inside of how these guys are developing themselves and taking responsibility for it. It's fantastic.
I watched Robin Lehner and Mike Rosati do something the other day, and I was never going to bring it up, but because of what Woody just stated, there was part of the NHL practice went down to the other end where Laurent Brossoit was working. And it wasn't going to be a long time where Lehner was going to be out of the loop of the drills. But Rosati, the goalie coach for the Vegas Golden Knights, put a bunch of pucks over just above the right hash mark. And they worked on stopping pucks behind the net. So he would rim a puck behind the net. Lehner would stop it and then make a pass up the boards. It was 3 minutes, 4 minutes tops that he would have been standing there watching the drill at the other end before the breakout came back. But they took advantage of that ice time in what you would consider the most simple puck handling drill that you can do. Just pucks. It wasn't a planned out thing where you did both sides or anything. They just worked on doing it for maybe 15 reps. And I thought it was really impressive.
I've done it with one rep when it's a flow drill and the whole flow is going down to the other end. And just as it's coming down, I'm standing there. The goalies that I work with, they recognize the whistle and then we'll dump a puck in and maybe you get one, maybe you get two before it comes back down to the other end. It creates a little pressure actually, because they know the play's about to come down. And if you're an assistant coach out there on the ice and you're watching a drill go on, why not do that when a goalie's standing there and needs some time? I don't care if he's 10 years old. It's an opportunity to work on some of these skills when you're young. It's great. Take advantage of the ice time that you have. Absolutely.
And that, just to finish that off with Georgie, the rest of the Rangers at the end of that practice did conditioning, just back and forth conditioning skate. And they were sort of coming down on his end. So he went to the other end where they were starting the back and forths and went into that crease with the same skills coach. And in a tiny little space, just worked off shots just from the top of the crease and simple bumps off the post into those shots. So again, just everybody else is doing a conditioning skate. I've still got some things I want to work on. I'm going to carve out a little space. And I literally have video of all these players around him doing this conditioning skate, and he's got his space carved out to, again, work on one small little skill and make sure he feels good heading into a game.
I think as long as you brought up Robin Lehner and Mike Rosati, I think we got to give Mike a little shout out here too for something that happened this week.
Yeah, he played. He got into a practice.
He had to put the pads on.
Mm-hmm.
Put the practice on. I think it was the old Louisville gear that he picked up on the road. He said, I don't know whether this is in confidence or not, but I'll share it with you guys. He said the rule was the guys couldn't shoot low. And normally you'd be thinking,
Don't make me go down.
They can't shoot high. The players aren't allowed to shoot high on the fill-in goaltender. He's like, no, they weren't allowed to shoot low because I didn't want to go down because I didn't want to get back up. But Rosati,
awesome.
an Olympian, played pro for so many years and played in Mannheim in Europe, and he's an awesome guy. But I thought that was pretty funny. It was the anti rule when you got the fill-in goaltender in practice.
Love it.
Wasn't it something like 8 years since he put pads on?
He and I have talked about it, and he's watched a couple of guys get in and have great excitement about playing the position, and he's kind of, I think he's rediscovered his love of kind of wanting to get back in there and playing and stuff. He's not going to do it all the time, but there's part of him that probably thought he was done ever wearing the gear again, and it was kind of cool.
So shout out to all the beer league teams in Las Vegas. If you're short a goaltender for a night, Darren can probably get you connected with Mike Rosati and have him out for one of your skates.
On the Georgie conversation, I'd love to chat with Rosati or different goalie coaches around the league on how you play that rush by Connor McDavid, because there's got to be a large assumption, if we're being totally honest, that there's no way he's ever going to get to you. Like he passes, splits the D, skates by another guy, and then dangles the fourth skater. There's 60 feet, and he's got 4 Rangers between you and Connor McDavid. There's no way he can possibly get through all that and then still get a deke.
I don't know. I like one of the recent pro reads might have been Joey Decord, where he was talking about a situation where any other player in the world, you think this might be happening, but it's Connor McDavid, so there's a good chance that this is going to happen. So I think you know who it is. I was actually thinking of this week's feature interview as we were talking about that, because Woody brings up that dreaded term again, goalie school goaltender. There's a situation you never see in goalie school. You never see with your goalie coach. There's absolutely nothing predictable about it. He could probably come out of those 4 guys in about 6 different places. How you read that situation, I have no idea other than extreme patience, but do we even worry about it? It's the best player on the planet, and I don't think anybody's ever going to face something like that. Unless you get down maybe to novice hockey, where you've got that kid who's 3 years ahead in development. So
no,
it's probably the youngest and least experienced goaltenders who have to face this thing more than him.
The only other time that you face that situation as a goaltender is in the father-son game, and one of the dads is an NHLer, and he skates through the whole team and comes down on you.
I was gonna say like Friday drop-in, where there's a bunch of like total benders, ankles are touching the ice as they skate, and then one guy who played college and decided he's like he actually wants to go out there and light you up. Like that's about the only time you're ever gonna see any like 1-on-4, and even then we're all making comparisons that aren't legitimate because none of those other situations involve McDavid's speed cutting through those 4. It's bananas. It's bananas.
Feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena is Curtis McElhinney. Just recently retired, and will reflect on his career. And there's some great stuff in there, including what he's doing now. But on his journey, can you believe how many times he and his family moved over the course? It's just going to blow you away. We'll also get into our gear segment with Cam with the Warrior Ritual X3E and the X3. We are going to chat about that chest protector and its second price point. But a couple of other news and notes for you. Carey Price rejoining the NHL and the Montreal Canadiens. Look forward to no timetable on when he's going to play, but he is rejoining the team this week.
And no idea how this plays out. All we do is hope that Carey's better and feeling good and everything in his life is good. That's about all you do. We're more just about Carey the person, not Carey the goalie right now. That can wait.
And Joel Hofer makes his NHL debut, Hutch. And this is a guy that you know really well. And the experience that he went through in making that first appearance with the St. Louis Blues, give us a little bit of the backstory of that experience.
It was actually a good 24 hours there for Friends of In Goal. Just aside from Joel, we'll get to that in a second. We had Dylan Ferguson racking up another shutout last night in the American League. We had Dylan Garand, another one of the Dylans out of the Kamloops Blazers organization, did the same thing last night in front of his hometown crowd in Victoria. And then, Joel Hofer. We enjoyed every minute of that game. It was absolutely fantastic. Great to see him get his first win. That first period weren't the shots something like 10-1, and just absolutely under siege and giving his team a chance to hang in there and then ultimately get the win towards the end. Of course, as you can imagine, my very favorite part was at the end with the other net empty. Joel grabbed a puck. You could see him sort of give her a look, and then he dropped it, made a pass, and ultimately an assist on the empty net goal. So sent him a little note afterwards, congratulated him, said Matty was really hoping he'd take a shot at the empty net, but he said he did have a look. I heard the broadcaster say, well, that would just be a bit cheeky for a young goalie in his first game to try and shoot for the empty net. But I think he is cheeky. He said, I had a look. It just wasn't there.
Hey,
so anyway, he made the right decision.
Did they watch the gold medal game?
Well, exactly, right? But, I guess you could say you're with your peers there as opposed to the young guy in the NHL. But kudos to Joel. I'm sure it's the first of many, many wins that he's going to enjoy in his NHL career, and we look forward to being along for the ride a little bit here from a distance.
You must have been watching the other broadcast because Panger would have been saying, go for it.
Yeah.
Send that thing down. There's no way Panger's calling that cheeky. He's calling the shot and getting out there and sweeping it down the ice. Hofer also made a pretty nice scorpion save. I don't know how intentional it was, but the puck ended up coming off him.
You could see him looking for it. So how intentional it was, I don't know, but there was definitely, it just didn't hit him there. Yeah, absolutely. The puck that went up in the air, up over his back. He contorted himself a little bit like a young Vasilevsky and managed to kick it out with the heel of his skate. Definitely one of my favorite saves I've seen in a long time.
Speaking of scorpion saves, boys, I didn't have this on the list of things to talk about this week, but now that you mentioned it, Demko.
Oh, the one-handed goalie in Vancouver.
Demko set a record. Like that had to be a record. There is no way anybody's made a scorpion save on a shot that high off the ice before.
Greatest elevation.
Yeah, like honest to God, he kicked his legs up. And the best part is if you haven't seen the sequence, go find it. There are two parts to me that stand out. First of all, folks, he loses his blocker and his stick in the net before this. So the scorpion save was made during a wild scramble without a blocker on his hand. He had already squared up and stopped Artemi Panarin on one shot without the blocker. This was Panarin again with an open look. You can actually see Demko's head and eyes looking over at the release while he's lying on his stomach. And then as Panarin shoots, he goes into this, kicks his heels up, and the elevation on this scorpion, he kicks his heels up to the point, I think his stomach actually comes off the ice. Somebody needs to meme this, where he comes back down to the ice and then immediately goes into doing the worm, because that's how much momentum he had as his legs came down from the scorpion, that his body was like sort of doing the worm. And then the best part of the sequence was hearing him talk about it afterwards. The third save, and he was waving his glove, so lesson to Thatcher, he learned the hard way. Losing his blocker does not mean he gets a whistle. He was waving his bare hand at the ref like, hey, stop play. Never did. Puck gets moved around, and it's Panarin winding up for a one-timer. He's got no blocker, tucks it in behind his hip, and makes a pad save into the corner. That's when the ref blew the whistle because it looked like the Canucks would get possession. Talking to him afterwards, he purposely set up off angle on that Panarin one-timer, assuming, A, that Panarin was going to shoot blocker knowing he didn't have one, and knowing that he couldn't use his hand, wanting to have more torso coverage above his pad in case Panarin got that one-timer up off the ice. Like, amidst all that madness that is going on and what appears to be desperation and waving his bare hand at the referee, the presence of mind to change your angle, knowing where your coverage lacked, shading to the blocker, knowing you could still use your glove to make up the given away coverage on the other side if Panarin did indeed go there. Having that presence of mind and that thought process as everyone else appears to be losing their minds. It was like the opening scene from Private Ryan. There were bodies everywhere during that scramble. But just to sort of zone back in and make that read and shift your body that way, I was kind of blown away by the whole thing. It was awesome.
Goalie IQ right there in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can we talk about that dumb rule, though? I mean, I know it's a rule. I know they weren't supposed to blow the whistle there, but it's a lot different when it's a goaltender in the line of fire. He could just, if he had a little bit less goalie IQ, he could have just as easily tried to make that blocker save.
Shattered his hand, yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
Well,
and it's for one play that happens once a season. Can we not just protect them?
Hold on.
The problem is they'll all start losing them.
The next night.
Okay.
It happened the next night. Robin Leonard lost
Come on,
his
really?
blocker. Yeah.
Really?
Had the same discussion with the referee and was told why the whistle didn't go. Hutch, I disagree with you on this. I think it's a good rule just based on, I know it, and it is dangerous. I'll give you that. There's no arguing that fact, but it's guys will be dropping their gloves. It's just honestly,
yeah. You give us an inch, we'll take a mile.
Yeah, you know that, Hutch. You know
I
we
do.
will.
It's gone through my head, and I'm sorry. I'm just pausing. I'm wondering, is there any way you can see whether there was something intentional? Probably not.
So you'd have
know.
it would be like
situation.
knocking the net off on a 2-on-0 so that you get a breakaway. Now it's an automatic goal. You would have to be like, okay, if you lose your glove, it's a penalty. So are we willing to go that far? Every time we lose or drop a glove, it's a penalty. Like, yeah, there'd have to be some. You'll get the whistle, but it's a penalty. Like there'd have to be some ramification.
Maybe. And I'd almost be okay with that.
I was more shocked at how many people didn't know the rule.
I was shocked that the goalies didn't know the rule, to be perfectly blunt.
Yeah.
Well, it's like holding up your hand when your skate blade falls off and hoping they're going to blow the whistle for you, because we've seen that too, and that's not dangerous in the same level, right? I actually did see somebody, and I apologize for not knowing who we should credit on Twitter, who actually made the suggestion on that McDavid goal, said, I just turn around knocking the net off. If you see him coming through four guys like that, I don't want to be the guy who gets posterized.
But when he's loading up outside the blue line, waiting for his teammates to get onside, as the best defense might be just to force the Oiler who's trying to clear the zone to stay inside the zone.
Offside.
That's it.
Tackle him.
And he had 60 feet to do all that. 60 feet.
That's what I say. Like,
Could have done it in 30 probably.
We hear it from goalies all the time, like in more traditional rushes. We hear it a lot. As a matter of fact, McElhinney is going to talk about it in the pro reads he did after this. After we finished doing this interview for the podcast, we did 3 pro reads to sort of complement it, and he's going that's one of the things he talks about is sort of wanting guys to force the issue higher in the zone so he can make the read, like force a guy to pass or shoot higher, like try and take that option away. Craig Anderson's talked with us about that as well. And that's what makes this so tough is like, he doesn't come through that crowd until he's right on top of you. So there is no sort of early preparation time. You'd rather actually have all 4 guys miss at the blue line or in the neutral zone and have McDavid on a clear-cut breakaway than
I'm sure
you
Connor
would
can
that
arrange
type
that.
of play. Yeah, I'm sure he's done. Yeah, exactly. He's done it many times, but you'd almost have I think as a goalie, you'd probably almost rather have a clear-cut breakaway than him emerging out of those 4 bodies right on top of you with that kind of speed.
This may sound strange, but I think Georgie gets out of this pretty good, because most thoughts and most reaction to that goal that the Oilers scored against the New York Rangers has been all about the 4 guys, the skaters that he beat. And I haven't seen much on the goaltender and we all know who it is, but most of the amazement has been about skating by the 4 players. So if there's a silver lining to it, I'll go there.
I think anytime you see a play like this, which you don't see very often, obviously, I think by the time he gets through the 4th guy, everybody's thinking, well, of course it's going in. It's almost like it's just the inevitable conclusion of the play. And the poor goaltender just has nothing he can do at that point.
And for the good of our game, Hutch, I'm kind of glad that McDavid finished it, because it's talked about and gone viral everywhere. And for him to go through all those players and then get stopped, I was watching the game. I happened to be flipping back and forth between the Canucks game and that Oilers game. And it would have been a great play, but not like this.
You're on it. That's it. You're out of the union. Go on.
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
What if it ended with a Thatcher Demko at the crossbar scorpion save? I mean, then everybody wins.
Okay. I'm fine.
Yeah. If he missed the net, that would be awful.
Okay, well, I'm just going to pause and take a little break here and see what I can do to get back into your good books.
There'll be somebody. There'll be somebody at the door in 3 minutes to collect the union card, Darren. Wait for the knock.
Yeah, hang on. Then we're alone here, Woody. We don't want that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You're okay.
I think maybe just a brief penalty or something for. So this will be easy. You got a 2-minute penalty here, Darren. Woody, just go. Keep talking for 2 minutes. This should be gravy for you.
It's okay. We're goalies. We don't have to serve our own penalties.
It's an amazing play because it's got 31 other teams in their dressing room today are talking about that play, and the skaters are looking at the goalie saying, "What should we have done?" The goalie's looking at the skaters saying, "This is how you play that." Like everybody's trying to figure out what to do.
Okay, Woody brought another one up that I know we're probably about a week late, but you were talking about Binner earlier.
Jordan Binnington fighting?
Maybe. Well, should goaltenders have to serve their own penalty if it's a misconduct? Because it's kind of absurd that another player sits in the box for 10 minutes. Your team's not short. What is the point of that even? How about goaltender takes a 10-minute misconduct and the backup has to come in? Am I going to get kicked out of the union for that one?
No, because they just wouldn't give them misconducts anymore.
Probably not. But if we didn't discuss that one, then we should have, because I'm actually with you on that one. They can take my card away for this one. Penalties, I get it, because you could take a trip doing a poke check, right? Like accidents happen. But if you're gonna rise to the level where you need to be tossed for 10 minutes, you should probably have to have a timeout. And Darren, speaking of the spectacle and the sport and everybody talking it, come on, man, that would be like around the water cooler talk the next day. Did you see Jordan Binnington sitting in the penalty box for 10 minutes in all his gear? Like that would totally rise to the level of league-wide conversation. So change that rule.
As far as I know, a goalie's never been in the penalty box.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a goalie in the penalty box, even off a line brawl or anything like that? Even if they just put the goalie in there to try and calm the situation down and let him out. I've never seen a goalie in the penalty box.
No, they just toss us out.
Weird memory of something.
Yeah, but if Jordan Binnington fights Nazem Kadri, which was the last situation, and they just fight, he's out, right?
Actually, no.
I found it. I haven't watched it yet, but I did have a memory, and all it took was a little bit of time on Google. And here's a YouTube video from 2020 of a Mercyhurst goaltender being put in the box for a 10-minute penalty. Got to watch that and figure that one out. We'll report back next week.
College, yes. I remember that too. Yes. Yeah, you know what, Darren? I think you just get tossed if you fight as a goalie. But usually that's about crossing center ice that gets you tossed.
Right.
So now we got to look at the rules because only one, but they both get tossed and only one usually crosses center ice, right? Like, so I don't know.
But if he fights Kadri, a player, Kadri serves his 5-minute major for fighting. What does Binnington do?
Yeah. So I don't know. We're gonna have to bring on an expert and get into the rules. We're gonna have to have an expert on rules. Speaking of rules, not to call him out on it, but Mr. Hofer broke one in his NHL debut. He had colored tape on the end of his knob. So there's one that gets Hutch caught that one. There's one that gets called it's a silly rule. They just would have brought out a roll of white tape and taped over it. But that one, guys get away with it all the time. We've seen a couple goalies this year have dark tape on the end of their knobs. It's random whether the referee remembers to call it or not.
I bet you Joel Hofer does that every game.
Well, honestly, it probably does. And he probably isn't aware of the rule. It's same with Thatcher. I was actually in the Canucks locker room pre-pandemic, and Thatcher was taping sticks. And I said, hey, we're doing this thing where the goalies tape sticks and we film it and sort of get your sort of quirks on how you tape it. Would you be interested? And he's like, yeah. And as he's taping, he's like, I do it. And as he's taping it, I'm like, hey, by the way, you can't do that. He's like, what? He was taping colored tape on the end of the knob. I'm like, you're not allowed to have a colored tape on the end of your knob. And he's like, and the equipment manager, Brian Hamilton, was walking by and he's like, nope, can't do it. And the question sort of was, why? And we're like, it's a good point. It's a fair question. We know why the rule existed originally, sort of black tape that could be confused for a puck ending up in the net and confusing the officials. But I think we're past that now. So maybe there's another rule we need to revisit. We're going to have a segment on rules that need to be changed.
We need to bring on an NHL official who happens to also be a goaltender.
Questions for the ref.
Who's it going to be?
I'll find out that answer about the fighting thing. And the tape thing, it gets called once every 30 times that a goalie's using color tape out there. The refs don't even what the refs don't want to do it. They don't want to.
Well, and it's not a penalty either.
No,
is it?
it's not.
It's just a
penalty.
yeah,
It's
it's just
they
a
just
warning.
put a little strip of let's go over to the Hockey Shop, thehockeysshop.com. Of course, Black Friday sale is coming up. Woody?
Yeah, Black Friday's coming up. Like I said, make sure you check the inventory, look for items that you want on your Christmas list. And I would say by Black Friday, you should be making those purchases if you want to make sure you have things under the tree. That's going to apply, I think, to a lot of industries and a lot of gift selections this year. So good advice for people. Don't be like me. That whole Christmas Eve thing isn't going to work anymore. Get your choices in early and look for sales opportunities at Black Friday. And I can't tell you whether it's going to be one of the sale items or not, but we are going to have Cam walk us through the second price point, which is already at a great price, of the Warrior chest protectors this week. So yeah, let's just go over to Cam and let him explain how these things work. Welcome back to the Hockey Shop, source for sports. We're down here in Goalie Utopia. I'm Kevin Woodley. He's Cam Matwiv. We come here for his expertise. We also come here every once in a while because I still like to play dress up. I miss the days of Casey Finnegan, Mr. Dress Up in the Tickle Trunk. So I come down here. I try and take as much crap off the walls this time. And I always try it on, see how it feels, check out the gloves, make myself as big a pain in the ass as I can to Cam Matwiv. He then has to put it all back. Today, we actually decided to wear it out. Now, with a catch, I actually broke the mic clip, putting it on Cam's chest protector. And so he's under very strict instructions not to move because his microphone is just basically wedged into his Warrior chest protector.
This is very difficult for someone who likes to be very fidgety. So
it's actually, I just told him, just handle this segment
the same way as you do when you goalie.
Same way you play goal.
Oh, you got me.
Don't move. Hey, don't move.
I've seen you play.
Just stand still and tell me about why I'm wearing this Warrior chest protector, what model it is, which one you've got on. Let's get into this.
So the reason why you guys have tuned in, I'm currently wearing...
Other than to see me.
More so me. E+, E Senior, Warrior Ritual chests. This encompasses their two senior model chests, two different price points, two different more so styles and geared to actually two different people. What I'm wearing here is just the E Senior chest. What this guy's got geared toward is more of that entry level chest. Get you out on the ice. I wouldn't be going to go play pro hockey in this by any means.
Don't worry, nobody's inviting you to play pro hockey anytime soon anyways, Cam.
Kick some rocks.
Stand still, keep talking.
So, in terms of overall feel-wise, it offers great flexibility. I'd love to show you, but I'd knock off the mic, so I'm not allowed to do that. Again, very adjustable, which gives...
I just noticed the arms there, like they're basically tied in with lace, so you can adjust the length on those.
Correct. So you have that ease of adjustment. The same thing also goes on for the back plate in terms of the way you can adjust the body height, similar to what you've seen in Warriors chest past. However, again, a little bit less padding. Oh, it's happened.
He fixed his mask. He screwed the mic. Turkey. Told you to stand still, Cam. All right, continue.
Sit still. So, again, if you're looking for more of that price point conscious chest, but you like the Warriors adjustability and stuff like that, that's where this E chest has come in. However, if you do want something a little bit more padded, a little bit more protective, again, a bit more of what you've kind of usually seen from Warrior at this kind of like middle of the road price point, you have the E+. So this does feature the new style hinged arm design, which does offer pretty supreme level of protection in the arms, even for what would be a senior level chest.
I got to say, when I put this on, my impressions were it felt more like a pro level of protection than a senior level, to be honest.
Correct. And this is helping to kind of round out Warrior's offering for their chest. A little bit more squared off in this chest, even in comparison to the E that I'm currently wearing. This one's modeled a little bit more after the Pro. That one's modeled after the Pro Plus in their higher end models. Again, squared off shoulders.
I look big.
He does. He also has chair. Overall feel-wise, very good. Still has that same level of Warrior adjustability that you have, come to be accustomed to, for sure. But again, a bit of an upgrade in overall protection. Again, slightly different price point, but more expensive kind of between the two units. However, once again, I'm sorry, somebody's Velcroing something and someone has a very sensitive mic.
I just wanted to show off the adjustability. Don't move.
Oh,
Stay still. See?
man, this is hard to stay still today.
Side flaps are removable as well.
Yes. So not something featured on this chest, featured on that chest, and then the rest of the way through their entire lineup. Again, great overall padding density, great adjustability, awesome price point for someone who's growing and kind of tearing through their lineups, not quite ready for a pro chest protector, but needs some of that, same level of protection. Also, senior, beer league, things like that, perfect chest for that.
Okay, perfect. Well done, Cam. Now, stay still. I'm just going to go get all the gear for the next segment. Don't move.
I had my coffee.
Stay there. Oh, quiet. If they've got more questions, because we do have these two models. And if you look back at our old reviews, you'll see the two other models that Cam was talking about. We do have reviews of those as well. The pro level of these, the pro version of these models, we've already done a review on. But if you do have questions, sizing, fit, which model is right for you, where can they get you?
604-589-8299.
There's obviously a lot of mobility here because I keep having to adjust my mask and I have no problem doing it. You are not allowed to adjust your mask. Stay still. Still.
1-800-567-7790.
And if you happen to be in the area, check them out in person at the hockey shop out here in Surrey, in the outskirts of Vancouver. You too can come down and play dress up, and Cam will tell you how to fit a chest protector properly.
I'll be able to move this time.
Maybe. Just stay there.
It is one of the most personal pieces of equipment, isn't it? The chesty. And that second price point, if you do your research, you can find some great protection at a very decent level of cost, Woody.
Yeah, big difference. I mean, I look at that Warrior X3 E Plus, which is the one I was wearing in the video. And a reminder for those listening on the podcast, you can catch video simulcasts, a video presentation of the gear segment each week on our YouTube channels, Instagram, on the website at ingoalmag.com. Below each episode, we post the video of the gear review. That one I had on, felt like it would have no problem with the level of protection for where I play, and it's $230 less than the Pro model. So, Warrior's done a nice job of. I think in the past they had more of a sort of soft traditional feel. They added the mechanical arms, which some people loved. We loved them when we tried them. Not everyone did, but they had both options. They presented a little smaller in the past. They weren't the biggest looking units, and now they found a really nice sort of blend between the two lines. One where it's a little more softer, traditional feel, a little more flex, and the other one that might be a little more rigid out of the box, but presents really big, has a lot of protection. So I like the fact they've gone with two distinct lines, two distinct models, and with the two price points in each one, there's an option there. You don't have to be in the $600-700 range. You can easily get away with playing in that senior model.
It's really changed over the course of the years, the chesty and how it integrates with the arms and of course the shoulder pads, and going big and then getting down to more manageable levels with the new NHL rules. And Curtis McElhinney, who is our Sensorina VR feature interview this week, he would have experienced everything through the course of his career. Hutch, I mean the rise and the start where you get dinged all the time to the overprotection, and now to where we are.
There isn't a piece of equipment that is more dear to my heart than the chest and arms because of what you and I grew up playing with, Darren. Forget Curtis McElhinney, who is a young man compared to the two of us. Anytime I see somebody throw up on Twitter one of those images from the old Cooper catalog from 1978 or something.
Daryl Ray just did that the other day.
Oh, really?
With the gloves, yeah.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did see that one. Man, does it ever warm my heart. I love a good chest and arm because I just think back to all the pain that we went through. And I know, as you said, it's relative. I'm sure for Curtis, when he came into the NHL, it was not nearly the same piece of equipment either. And he probably felt every shot in a way that you don't now. It's absolutely changed the game. We talk about how the helmet, the modern mask has enabled goaltenders to play a little bit lower to the ice, and that changed the game. But the ability to trap and smother pucks with your body because of this modern chesty is incredible. And then to see that you've got a second price point line like this that is as good as it is, making the game, I don't want to say affordable for everybody, but it's fantastic that the access to this technology is a little bit more affordable than it is with all the top of the line gear, so that everybody can get access now to something that's, as I say, changes the way you play the game. Just love it.
Well, and listen, Curtis McElhinney is a gear guy, right? Like, he gets into it a little bit in this interview, talking about how when he first started, like, he had his toe laces done up super tight, and Hamika Kiprasov used to do the same thing. And speaking of helmets, I remember covering a game where Curtis McElhinney took a slap shot off the mask through traffic and split him wide open, like just right across the forehead. I think he was with the Ducks at the time. But a reminder, this interview, we talk a little bit more about retirement and where he's going and a little bit about his career, but a reminder that this is the second time we've had Curtis on. And if you enjoy this, which I know you will, make sure you go back and listen to episode 28 with Curtis McElhinney, which is right as he's leaving Toronto, an experience he admitted at the time sucked, and signing with the Tampa Bay Lightning for what would be 2 Stanley Cups. We really get into how his love for gear made him a goalie, and sort of how that path started with him back in that old interview, as well as talking a lot about sort of how he reinvented himself, which he touches on here as well, with the Columbus Blue Jackets after fracturing his pelvis doing a crease movement. So there's a lot more to sort of the path to here. We get into, it's more of a catch up this time, but trust me, folks, you want to go back and listen to the first interview as well in episode 28, because it was a doozy.
He was a rock star in Toronto. That was a big loss at the time for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it took them a while to find out a suitable replacement for that backup role that could give them an opportunity to win. There was no Sense Arena VR when McElhinney broke into the National Hockey League. Hutch?
There was no Sense Arena when McElhinney broke into the league, and I wonder if it's something that he's going to get a little bit involved with now that, as you'll hear in the interview, he's doing some remote coaching as well. The technology of today is absolutely incredible. And we've been talking recently about Sense Arena and their new skills competition that it's going to be 5 months long, leading into a championship that gets you the opportunity to possibly go to the NHL playoffs and watch them if you're the overall champion. But it's been a while since we've mentioned some of the very specific things that are available to you if you're a Sense Arena goaltender. The opportunity to face video shooters well above your level so that you can improve your ability to read the release. I just think it's absolutely incredible. Both that ability to read the release, that ability to face overclocked shots so that when you get back to your league, things are going to feel so much slower, so much easier. Working with screens, you can't get enough of that in practice because players don't want to stand in front of shots coming from the point or closer in. You can get that in Sense Arena. I love the tools like the box control, where you can actually see the lines on the screen that show you how you can cover the net properly wherever that puck moves. It's not just a static thing that your coach does on the ice with you. Invaluable work, coaches, absolutely. But now the ability to track the movements of that box through a full drill, that's now taking the technology, and they're not just mimicking what happens on the ice, but they're giving you tools that you don't have access to on the ice. The chance to replay the shots and see exactly what happened instead of, I know Curtis talks in the interview today about video review, absolutely essential tool. Well, now the second a shot has happened, you can turn it around in Sense Arena and see exactly what you did and maybe how you could change things up a little bit. And then the training plans by incredible coaches like Bill Ranford, who can walk you through a multi-day training plan so that you can use this tool to better your game. The level of opportunity, if you're a Sense Arena goaltender, is absolutely incredible. I know we all love it. I know the goaltenders we work with love it, and I'd encourage people to give it a look. Go see sensearena.com. Go to ingoalmag.com and check out the comprehensive review we put up that probably needs some updating, because this is software that changes all the time. New releases give you new features, give you new opportunities. Absolutely incredible. well worth it with or without this new global skills competition. But we encourage you to grab your Sense Arena and get involved in the competition, as I know Darren Millard will. He keeps threatening every week. Have you posted a score yet, Darren?
I have not posted a score.
Okay, it's time this week.
I know.
This week, let's look for Darren Millard in the top 32. You can actually go to Sense Arena's website and check out the leaderboard as well. Will Darren make an appearance on the leaderboard this week?
I doubt I'll make an appearance on the leaderboard. I have been using the Sense Arena headset, but I'm trying to get to a point where I'm not going to embarrass myself with my score. That's what I'm trying to do. In the next update, can you talk to the folks over at Sense Arena? Can they post the Connor McDavid rush so we can work on how to stop that?
Oh, wouldn't that be incredible? Wouldn't that be incredible?
That's for down the road. Right now, it's Curtis McElhinney, our feature interview brought to you by Sense Arena VR on In Goal Radio, the podcast.
Ecstatic to welcome back to the program for his second appearance on the In Goal Radio podcast, Curtis McElhinney, now retired, but also now, since we talked to you last, two-time Stanley Cup champion Curtis McElhinney. There's so much I want to catch up on. We sort of deep dove your career and all the evolution of it last time we had you on. But the last couple of years, let's start with the decision to hang him up this year. Walk us through that process and how you ultimately arrived at it.
Well, I think like we talked about back in the summer as free agency was transpiring and all that was going on, the intention was still to play one more year. It wasn't necessarily so much convincing myself, but more the family that the situation in Tampa was they were moving on and looking for something else, and whether or not the family was up for moving, and they were. I just think there weren't opportunities that presented itself, and I'm not going to dive into the opportunity or look at it any deeper than, my last year wasn't very good. It wasn't good enough to maintain that position. And once you start creeping up there in age, the reality is if you don't perform, you're done. So it gets harder as you get older, but it's tough to argue with the way it ended. I mean, I certainly got to enjoy 2 Stanley Cup championships and watch a tremendous team compete to win those. So I don't really have any regrets about it. It would have been nice, but it sure is nice sitting on my couch, kind of watching highlights and, just marveling over some of the skill that the players have today.
How tough was last year? Because, I mean, it feels like from the outside, talking to a lot of different guys, it was a strange year. Everybody was affected differently by COVID. It was a shortened season. So especially for backups, tiny sample size, one bad game could sewer your numbers for the whole year. And you're talking about, you're coming off a season where you didn't like the way you played or where your numbers weren't reflective of how you played. Is it any frustrating at all, or just how tough was it for everybody last year, sort of getting through it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre. I think, especially for a lot of the backups and even teams that had starting goalies that missed the playoffs or weren't in the bubble the first round. That was a full calendar year, it felt like, before you were playing hockey again. And, some guys just hit their stride and picked up right where they left off. Other people struggled. For myself, I felt like I had some good nights, and then there were other nights where I just got absolutely blasted. And, when you're a backup goalie getting a handful of games, especially in a shortened season, if you get 7 goals scored against you in a night, it's that takes a good 4 to 5 games of quality hockey to recover from that, at least numbers wise. So were there good games? Yeah. And then were there some games where it just went south real fast? Absolutely.
Well, and I was going to say Tampa, I take a look at the analytics. Steve Valiquette lets me peek under the hood at Clear Sight. 2 years ago, they were really impressive defensively. Last year in the playoffs, they became impressive defensively, but they were a little looser in the regular season than they had been the year before. You're inside that room. You're inside that crease. The perception, I think, and we hear it a lot about Vasilevsky. Oh, he's playing on a great team. It's not necessarily an easy team to play behind at times, no?
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, I don't know all the analytics, nor do I understand them. So I have to rely on people that dive into that pretty deep. But, just from my personal experience and in regards to watching that team and playing behind them, there are nights where, Vasi just stands on his head, and, he makes it look pretty easy on a nightly basis. And he's just been so insanely consistent that you take it for granted at times. I think sometimes that's the case. I mean, I guess you could refer back to Cooch's interview and the understanding of how important he is to that team. But yeah, I mean, you need all those components kind of coming together at the right time. I think he certainly cleans up a lot of things, and maybe he lets that team play a little looser than they should. But, as far as their playoff performances the last 2 years, I will say that the Tampa Bay Lightning took a tremendous step in terms of their defensive responsibility and being able to make plays. And they lost that entire line that really allowed them to do that. But, from lines 1 through 4, they were much better in regards to their decision-making and their defensive commitment.
Now, what's the like you said, you finished on top, as much as you may have wanted to play a little more, 2 Stanley Cups to end your career. What are the lasting memories for you from those runs?
Really just watching that group come together. I mean, the year before in Carolina, I got another opportunity just to play a lot of games, actually start playoff games, which I would never in any ordinary year get that opportunity. So I had that incredible experience for my personal career. And then, getting to be a part of Tampa as they were coming off that first round loss to Columbus the year before, a little chip on their shoulder, make some transactions at the deadline to pick up some key players that really were instrumental in that third line. And, I think the break too, as we made those trades that first year, everybody had high expectations, and it felt like we gave up a lot just to get those 2 players. So once that break took place with COVID, we really kind of took off afterwards. I think the team just kind of turned the page, and it was like a new season was starting over once we returned and we all went into the bubble. But it was just incredible to watch that group commit to something. And then each game and each step, I think that 5 overtime game against Columbus in the first round there was almost like just a hurdle, and had kind of burst forth. And, beyond that, it was like the floodgates were open, and the team just kept growing and growing and growing. And, each night you were seeing different players step up and just have tremendous performances.
Personally, to get to hoist the cup, I mean, I remember seeing, your parents there. Is that the biggest takeaway from that? It would have been tough because your family couldn't be there in that bubble, but at least having your folks. Yeah,
I mean, the way that all transpired as far as families getting into the bubble was kind of odd. My family, having lived up in Calgary, just had to make the short trip. They stayed in the hotel right next to us. I'm pretty sure they did not have a window. The only window they had was into the mall, which there was nothing going on due to COVID. So how my parents stayed in that room for 5 nights together to watch hockey, I have no idea. But, what an incredible experience for them. And, for them to get that opportunity to come down on the ice. And even afterwards, that first cup win was pretty special. I think the best part about it was just the immediate group, a handful of parents and family that were in town and were allowed in. But I mean, they were down in the dressing room afterwards. I've got, pictures of my dad drinking with the cup. It was really nice just to spend the evening with the team that you had spent the last couple of months chasing down something, and really got to enjoy that. I mean, when I compare the two, it was tremendous with the fans and having all the family, but it just seemed chaotic after that win that night in Tampa. So both experiences were great, but for me, I'll always cherish that first one just based on the fact that it was the team that had spent so much time together, and then my parents getting to sneak into the dressing room and hang out with the team and celebrate a little bit. So pretty cool.
Nice and intimate, and I guess like full circle, right? Like everyone, I'm sure your parents played a massive role driving you to practices and all the stories we hear from minor hockey. So to have them like almost bookended it, right? They had the sacrifice of the 5 days in the hotel to make sure they were part of that special celebration.
Yeah, I mean, tremendous. They've been through all the ups and downs. I mean, I've insanely fortunate to have gotten an opportunity to even play one NHL game. The fact that it was in Calgary was another bonus for my parents, that being their hometown. So, there were a lot of great things that happened. I mean, 16 years for me personally it's tremendous. I mean, was it pretty the whole way? No, absolutely not. But the bottom line is that I got that opportunity. People provided it to me, and it certainly capped off with the right way, which was, I couldn't have written it any better.
Now, outside of the 2 cup runs, is there a memory that stands? Like, is it too fresh to look back? If I were to ask you to reflect on your career, is there one that jumps out? You'd already mentioned Carolina and playing in the Eastern Conference Final. Is there one that jumps out for you outside of those?
It's tough. I tend to take a lighter look at things, and there are always things that make me laugh as I look back on them now. I think my first game in Calgary, Kipper had this agreement with the coach that if he was having an off night, he would never get pulled. He could only pull himself. So, it was a matter of kind of keeping eyes on him to see, okay, I'm done. And the first game, I believe, was against San Jose. I still have the stat sheet up in my house somewhere. It doesn't say the stats, thankfully, but I got credit for 2 shots on net. I think there was only 1 shot. I had 2 turnovers and 1 goal. So, that's one of those things I'll always remember. And then the next day I was on a plane down to the minors to straighten out my game, as they like to say.
What I remember from Calgary was that mask. I'll never forget your Flames mask.
Yeah, pretty demonic, but the painter was a local guy in town, just did some tremendous work. And yeah, they were cool.
Yeah, that had a little edge to it. The masks mellowed out as you got older and had kids and stuff, but that thing was sort of like a hardcore sort of nightmare type thing with the skulls and the flames, and I think there might have even been a pistol involved. I love that one.
Yeah, there's all guns, demons, skulls, flames, all that good stuff. But like you said, it definitely got a little calmer as I got older.
If you could go back now, as you're making this transition from playing and doing some coaching, if recently retired Curtis McElhinney could go back to that kid who made that first start with the Calgary Flames, or even just turning pro, what would be the advice? What would you talk about?
I mean, that's so tough because, I look at all my experiences, and if I didn't get shipped around to so many teams, I probably wouldn't have met as many goalie coaches as I did and learned different things. Nowadays I look at it and I see, for the most part, that goalie coaches are all teaching the same thing technically. So we're all in agreement on the same things. And the game was evolving so much from when I broke into the league. I was still strapping my pads as tight as I could when I was coming to training camps with the Flames. And, I had no concept of this idea of raising the right leg to make a recovery or anything. I probably made skate saves when I first tried coming to camp. So, so many things have changed that it's kind of tricky to say, oh, well, if you had done this differently, or you had to just focused on this. My mentality was, I just wanted to be the hardest working guy out there. I wanted to stop every puck. And, did it pay off? Yeah, I think it did. It was a learning curve for me to kind of understand the way the game was evolving and to get those experiences, and learning what an RVH is when you're 29 years old is not a fun thing. That puts your body in a pretty tough situation. And, I've got a couple of knee surgeries now to prove it, and high ankle sprains and all that other fun jazz that comes with being a goalie. But so I wouldn't change anything. I don't know if there's a message I would have relayed to myself, who maybe just, kind of trust the process, I guess, at the end of the day, right? Things certainly worked out for me personally. It really just came back to a mental mindset of maybe I needed to be a little more calm at certain situations and not get so emotional about the things that were happening. Cause you go through a lot of stuff throughout a professional career. It doesn't matter what level you're at.
Now, technically, you said everybody sort of teaches the same things. I know we talked last time about the voices you ran through as you moved through the league, and especially in Columbus with Ian Clark, who I have here now, and coming off a devastating injury, and then moving on to Tampa Bay as well. Curtis McElhinney, the goalie coach. What different influences do you pull from where?
I pull from all of them, really. We can go back to Dave Marcoux being my first guy in Calgary. Learned some things there. Not a lot of playing time for myself personally. Then I get that opportunity with Ian in Columbus for a handful of years. Taught me a ton of stuff technically that I never knew. Hurt my body in many ways, but I'm forever grateful because it allowed me to stay in the league and to kind of evolve my game. and then we jump up to Toronto with Steve Briere. Certainly takes a little bit different approach to coaching goalies, was a little more relaxed and laid back and would give me a little more space. Mike Bales was the same way in Carolina, and Franz down in Tampa to wrap up my career. So they all have an impact on me. There were certain things I loved about all of them, and in certain ways they helped me. And then there were things that I'm like, I don't know if that's for me. And that's on each goalie to kind of make those decisions. It's like, well, I'm going to take from this coach and try and improve my game. And if I don't really feel he's improving my game, then maybe we need to have a conversation and find ways that we can work together. And the tricky part for goalie coaches is a lot of times you don't have, Franz in Tampa, for example, was working with Vasilevsky, and then he turns around and he sees me standing there. That's quite a difference. He's got capabilities that I'll never be able to have, especially at the age that he was working with me. So I guess we'll say that he had to dumb it down a little bit for myself. But, as far as personality wise goes, all those guys were great. And we all have good relationships. I try and keep in touch with all of them and just kind of poke them every now and then to see how things are going. And they all have influences on how I'm coaching now. And so it's fun. It's like I took the things that I really enjoyed from them, and I try to apply that to the stuff that I'm teaching kids now and trying to get them to understand. And, it's rewarding. It's nice. I got to do it for an incredibly long time. My body's still in one piece right now, as many times as it's been put back together. So, I get incredible value out of telling a kid some of the things that I learned over 16 years doing it professionally.
Now, like you said, you were thinking about playing, so there was a little bit of hesitation this summer in terms of what the next step was. You had opportunities, I believe, or at least could have, if you pursued them, had opportunities to coach at a professional level. You're staying in Colorado for now. Like, what's this transition like? Are you sure that's the next step, or you want to just feel it out a little bit? And who are you? Make sure we give a plug to where you're working now and who you're working with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. There were opportunities that came up, and I guess that's the tell-all sign when teams start calling you and asking if you have any interest in goalie coaching. You're like, oh, well, I kind of still wanted to play, but I guess we're moving on. And for me, it wasn't hard. I'm out here in Steamboat, Colorado. I'm super excited about skiing, and I love fishing and mountain biking and all those things. I'm now coaching my kids' hockey team. So, I've got a lot on my plate. A lot of activities to look forward to. So it wasn't hard. I think when you've moved, I think we were about 35 times in 16 years, it gets pretty old, and it's a tough sell to the family. So for us, it was a pretty simple decision to settle down and kind of find the routine here instead of trying to chase something else. And now I'm working with my fellow college partner, Matt Zaba from Mountain High Hockey. And, he's based out of Denver. I'm up here in the mountains doing most of the video work for him and just video review. And we'll do some mental skills training and things like that. And it's been incredible. I mean, it's great to talk to kids. I mean, we're kind of starting at around age 12 is when I can really start helping kids out, I think. And then as it gets older, you're really just fine tuning and trying to change the way that they see the game. And maybe if you can help them with reads. Like I said, technically, most of these kids have got that down. It's more just kind of understanding situations and how to improve reads and things to be aware of. So it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it so far. It's just like we're doing right now. It's usually I go over some video, we hop on a Zoom call, and we have a good conversation.
And it allows you to get some more time at home with the family rather than traveling 35 times in 16 years. I guess it's funny. I never realized the number was that high. I think everybody just assumes life in the NHL is this spectacular lifestyle. And hey, it's great, right? But it's tough on families. Like, I don't think people realize just how much of a demand it is when you're moving around all the time.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you come into the league, you're kind of naive. You think you're the heir apparent to whoever you're going to be replacing. I was, obviously behind a tremendous one in Calgary with Mika Kiprasov. I guess the wake-up call was when he played 76 games in back-to-back years, and your only games were the 3 and 4s every 6 to 8 weeks. So, that should have been a pretty good indication of where the organization and the league in general kind of had you pegged to be. So it took me a while to kind of comprehend that and adjust to that role and find a way to succeed in it. But yeah, it was good.
Now, Kipper, you talked about toe ties and having your pads tight. Like, Kipper never loosened his toe ties. Like, he had his pads on tight. When he dropped into the butterfly, his skates were literally off the ice. I used to watch that just as I was starting to learn all these things and know how much more stress that was putting on his body. And it just used to blow my mind. Mm-hmm. His routine. You got to check. Like, I'd heard it was like 45 minutes of stretching before and after morning skate, before and after game. Like, what was his? You got a close look at that stretching routine. You start with him and you end with Vasilevsky, and those might be two of the most flexible guys I've ever seen in the league.
Yeah, they're tremendous and very different in regards to their approach to the game. I will say, I mean, Kipper just looks like that guy who showed up, but he spent a tremendous amount of time stretching. We had those machines that you kind of crank out, you put your legs in and they go further and further out. And I could probably get to about 135 degrees. And he was going the full 180 and then pushing the legs behind him with yoga blocks that he would stick in there. And it was a little disturbing just to see him sitting in there. It was, and that was his routine. It worked for him. Wow. I mean, what a career he had until the last few years there, where I think he picked up a knee injury or something like that. But in terms of durability, he was about as good as they come. And it was, he stretched a ton, he got massages and steam room. And as far as what he did away from the rink, I have no idea. He kept to himself, but whatever he did, he was an insanely consistent performer for a number of years for Calgary. And a special goalie to watch, that's for sure. And then on the flip side, I had my career with Vasilevsky, who's in his prime. I mean, I don't think he spends a minute of his day doing anything else besides getting ready for the next game, whether that's work at home, his preparation before games. It's just over the top. You'll see those odd pictures where he's out fishing on his jet ski, and I think that's his little break from the game. But beyond that, I mean, yeah, he's impressive. I'm sure he could play 75 games, no problem. I think he's just that type of a workhorse goalie, and you don't see many of them anymore. It's not, and I don't know if that's just the demand that the game puts on goalies now, but it seems like, 55 to 60 is kind of the range that most number one goalies should be playing at this point.
Now, are there lessons you can take away from watching Vasi at the end there? Like you said, there were things he did, there are saves he makes, there are positions he contorts himself into that, I don't know, you could teach anyone, but obviously the work ethic that you talked about, I'm not sure, and I remember hearing this from stories with guys that worked with him back when he was 18, like, they'd be 2 minutes late to get out the door to go to practice and he'd be sitting there waiting with his bags, like, let's go. Are there lessons from the work ethic that the best goalie in the world still puts that type of work in? And that's probably why he's the best goalie in the world.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped. I mean, you could go watch him if anyone ever has that opportunity to sneak into a practice and just watch him perform. His compete level is off the charts. And, we could say that about any goalie that gets to a professional level. We all compete. I think Vasi's fire is one of his assets that he has. I think he's toned it down in certain aspects of his game as well, where maybe it got the best of him. But, the thing that I marveled at over the 2 years watching him was, he has all the physical attributes and the mindset to be an elite goalie, but I just watched his hockey IQ continue to grow and grow and grow as he got more and more experience. I mean, he's already played, I think he's past 300 games now, but his experience and the things that he's seen in his short career and how many games he's logged, it's just, he's getting smarter and smarter. And when you combine that with the physical tools and the mindset that he already had, it's a scary combination. I mean, it's super scary. And we've watched him the last couple of years just take over in the playoffs and be that dominating goalie that he can be. And when you're an opposing team and you're looking down at the other end, and that's the guy you got to face on top of all the other players that Tampa has, that's a daunting task.
Now, when you say hockey IQ, and you mentioned it before, I wanted to come back to it. You talked about sort of the reads and doing the video review with the kids, and that's the biggest area you can help them with growth. Have you got any examples of like a hockey IQ example where Vasi picked something up and then applied it, or things that you're teaching to kids? Because I do think, and that's why we started Pro Reads at In Goal, was the idea to show kids who can become quite, at times, maybe, I don't want to say, goalie school goalies is a term I hate. And yet when everything you do is perfect movements into shots where you know they're coming, that ability to read the game can get lost. So can you give me a couple of examples of his hockey IQ growing, and then how you try and teach kids that?
Sure. I think, there's two situations that stand out for me with Vasi in regards to things that he's started to do that are just, you don't see a lot of other goalies doing it. One is him turning his stick over when players are coming down on his glove side, kind of like a breakaway almost. He'll use it like a reverse poke check, but he's not throwing the stick out there, but just having the ability to make that read in that situation to prevent a player from pulling it far to the blocker side is incredible. I think he got burnt once last year in the playoffs on it, in the final. Actually, I'm sure it was against Montreal. Somebody made a real heads up play and just shot it 5-hole, and it looked like a routine play. But the number of times I've seen him pull that off in tight, I mean, we're talking milliseconds for him to make that decision and make that play. And it looks so routine when he does it that you're like, how on earth did that happen? Or why wasn't the player looking at it? Another situation, same thing, coming down the glove side on a 2-on-1, for example, he'll almost play like a VH on a rush play and just kind of hold his ground and just make this super casual like glove save where he kind of like collapses down on it. And it looks so simple of a save, but to have the ability to kind of almost preload that side, take away the entire short side and upper part of the net while still having the ability to make a lateral save to his blocker is just tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. And, most goalies are just, you're locked in your regular stance until the last second, but there's things like that you watch in his game and you're just like, okay, yeah, that's what elite guys do. They continue to evolve when they're already at the top.
It's funny because we've seen Carey, and we had him on a while back talking about that. Actually, during the pandemic, where we ran a couple clips by him where he had sort of loaded that same way. And he talked about the same thing, like holding that short side, but having that leg loaded in case he needs to go. And just a great example. You're right. Like not many guys use it, but there's an example where we can learn something on a sort of what we would consider a post play. And these guys are integrating it into a rush chance. I guess the word I'm looking for is creativity.
Yeah. And that's, we're talking about the elite of the elite, and there's a ceiling for somebody like myself, and then there's a ceiling for those guys that are able to go to a whole nother level where, they already have the athletic ability, the mindset, and their hockey IQ. Most of them come into the game with a great IQ, and then it just continues to go. And that's where you see some of these guys just go to that next level. And, the same goes for anybody too, that, a guy like Marc-Andre Fleury, who's still, is he 36 now, and is still performing at an elite level. Drastically different team that he's playing on this year, but, to be doing what he's doing at 36 and, a guy like Ryan Miller, they hang around. It's pretty cool to see.
Now, is that where video comes in, and not just you, like maybe both cases, working with kids now and using video as a teaching tool to recognize different situations? But was that part of your growth as a goaltender in the league? Like having those video sessions with coaches, was it something where it was always with the goalie coach, or did you start doing those types of things on your own as well, looking at film and looking for tendencies? Is there something to be gained from that work?
Yeah, and I have a small disclaimer that I'll say now that I'm doing video work and trying to help kids out. For myself personally, the only time that I was looking at a lot of game film of myself was when the goalie coach brought it to me because we needed to address something. In my mind, if I had a great game and I felt like I was on top of the world and I was playing good, in my mind, I looked as good as Vasilevsky. And then I saw the video And, the next thing I know, I'm like, ooh, that is not pretty. That's not what I felt like out there in my mind. So I always never really enjoyed watching myself on video. I love watching other people on video because I'm like, wow, that looks incredible. Those guys are amazing. When I saw myself do it, it just kind of looked like a fish out of water sometimes. And it wasn't as cool as it felt when I was actually doing it.
So there can be a negative to too much video.
Yeah. Well, for me, I mean, I think the great part about video is and now with the capabilities is that we can rewind it. We can go through slow motion. We can do a whole host of things where you can really, really see the technical side of it and, the clarity of it, provided you're at a decent level. Is the video footage is usually pretty good.
Now, is this, I mean, we're looking for silver linings. This pandemic has been tough on a lot of people. Is there maybe a silver lining there that we've started to see young kids, look for Zoom, look for opportunities to work with coaches in this way, as opposed to constantly having to be on the ice to get better?
Yeah. And I think, the big thing too is, we mentioned that every kid today is logging a ton of miles in terms of the technical stuff and the private lessons, the goalie schools, things outside of that's physical wear and tear on your body. And as we mentioned, most of these kids are pretty technically sound now. They all have the basic fundamentals down. They all understand what the RVH is and, the post integration. And do you hit that nonstop from the time you're 12 years old? I think the video is beneficial in regards to, you can see things on there and you can kind of practice them mentally and not have the physical wear and tear on your body. That's not to say that you don't need to perform those exercises on the ice. But sometimes it's nice too if you can use that practice time almost as mental rehearsal by watching video and kind of going over that and visualization and things like that you don't necessarily need to be doing private lesson after private lesson and hammering a reverse. The recovery is just all that wear and tear we put on our body as goalies. It adds up over the years, right? And a lot of times you're just trying to stay healthy. And that was probably one of the best things for me was that I was pretty durable. I didn't get hurt too often. I had a couple major blowups, but they didn't interfere with my seasons too often.
I was going to say, fracturing your pelvis, basically, that's a major blow up, buddy. But the fact you came back from that one still is remarkable to me and had that career. That was, yeah.
Yeah. And it was great. I mean, it's funny to look back on now, but I remember that summer in free agency. So the injury happened in the new year. I had just come back from Arizona from playing a few games. I got back to Portland. We were playing a game in Manchester and I sustained this injury. I think I had surgery around the end of January because they weren't entirely sure what was going on. And my rights got flipped to Columbus. And I remember getting a call from their general manager towards the end of the year. I want to say that they might have dressed a goalie from Michigan. They signed him and dressed him at the end of the year. But I remember getting a phone call after this surgery and asking if I could play. And I'm on the call with him and I'm like, I haven't walked in an entire month. I have a walker with tennis balls on it. I'm like, I don't know if I could play, but I'd show up if you really need me to, because I want to be back in the league. And, that's kind of how foolish we are at times. But, that was a full 9-month recovery. And even when I was signed by Columbus as a depth project that year for their minor league team during the lockout, I hadn't skated. I mean, it had been 6-7 months since I'd touched the ice. I went in training camp, was my first day on the ice, and I meet Ian Clark, and, he's trying to teach me things that my body's never done before. Meanwhile, I'm just trying to make sure that my body doesn't get pulled apart like it was 9 months before. So, I signed the contract. I told them I'd be there and I hope for the best. It ended up working out. The lockout was great. The minors were a ton of fun. It was a super competitive league that year. And then when that ended, half the team went up to Columbus and it was a little bit different story. But yeah, I mean, all these things that happened were, I guess, part of the journey and part of the experience, and you learned a lot from them. But
I guess part of that, to tie the injuries, not to that one, but you mentioned reverse and all the times we go into it, and the ankles and the knees and, video, once you've nailed the technique, I think Jonathan Bernier's talked about this a little bit with us too. he doesn't spend a lot of time working on his reverse now because he knows how to get into it. He's nailed it, but he also knows how much stress it puts on his body. So using video as a tool to sort of look at those situations and put yourself into them mentally without having to physically kill yourself getting into them, there's value there.
I think so. I mean, it's tough when, kids, I don't know what the right age for them to be learning this is. I don't know. I mean, it all depends on what your mobility is like, what your hip mobility is like, your ankle flexion, your knees, all that stuff. Your genetics, I'm sure, tie into it in some capacity. So there are many things that come together. I don't know what the right age to start teaching this is. I know learning it at 29 when I did not have the hip mobility or any of the other flexibility to do that was not good. And it put a ton of stress on my body at that age. And there were things that I changed in my personal routine that it kind of allowed my hips to open up a little bit and really just focus on that range of motion. It became easier, but I was also fighting time too as I got older. And, by the time I wrapped up and I was playing games, I mean, my skates were, I think they were tied up. I had the top two eyelets completely undone just so I could get into a reverse position, because if I tied my skate all the way up, it put too much stress on my knees. And that's not an easy way to play a hockey game, and it's not fun. And that's probably why I won't be joining the beer leagues as a goalie.
I was going to say that I got to get to beer league in a minute, but one last one. You talked about working with kids with mental skills or on mental skills. We so often think of mental skills as sports psychologists and things like that. Can sometimes it just be shared experience? Like where are you trying to help them with routines or just help their mindset, or is it just almost being someone to bounce talk off of?
Yeah, I think the great thing about the experiences that I had was there were a ton of opportunities where, did I manage myself the right way? No. Did I learn from it as I went through it? Did I grow from it? Absolutely. And right now it's about sharing those experiences, sharing the things that I went through, looking for ways to maybe improve it next time I encounter something like that. I think there's something to be said for all those experiences. Can I do what a sports psychologist can do? Probably not. I'm sure they have tools that I don't have. What I can offer is that I sat through this for 16 years. I saw a ton of stuff. I've been more or less in every situation you can imagine. So, you can share that with kids. You can relate to some of the things that they're going through. And you can look for ways to possibly either do it better next time or handle it as you're going through it. And, whether that's meditation, that's breathing stuff, that's journaling, there are so many resources out there that can help you go through all that stuff, that it's remarkable. And, we're in a tremendous age right now where there's so many things online and resources available that a lot of that stuff wasn't available to me. And most of the teams that I played for had sports psychologists, but it also felt like back then that if you were going to see someone that was a little taboo. And, that was my mindset. I never wanted to be hurt, and I didn't want to show any weakness. And is that the best way to handle it? No, absolutely not. But, I was stubborn, and I guess I'm old, and that's kind of what I thought was the best plan of action. But, I learned over the years. I started talking to people. I started looking for other resources to find ways to manage situations, whether they were good ones or even bad ones. And, like I said, it was a learning process. I'm definitely not the sharpest tool in the shed by any means. So it took me a little longer, but, I was fortunate that I got to sit through all those experiences.
On Instagram, you've been posting clips, some great examples and some great little quick thoughts on some of the saves we're seeing around the league. When Curtis sits down to watch hockey, because you clearly still do, who are your favorite goalies to watch?
Oh, to watch. It's tricky now because the last few years we haven't seen as many of the goalies as we normally get to see.
Right.
I mean,
schedule wise.
I put Bassey up at the top just because he does things that I've never seen done before, but there's kids coming into the league. I love watching a guy like Hellebuck who looks like he just stands there and literally just gets hit with pucks and makes it look so effortless. It's frustrating. Robin Leonard's a guy too. super calm. I mean, outside of the last few games where I've seen him kind of diving around a little bit, but that may just be a product of the shots he's facing, and then there's new kids coming in that I don't even have any idea about. And, you get to watch another style in Jack Campbell and Peter Mrazek in Toronto this year, and both very reactionary goalies. And Jack's had a ton of success so far. So, that game last night between Tampa and Toronto was tremendous. Both goalies stood on their head, two drastically different styles, but what a treat to get to watch these guys. And even a guy like Jonathan Quick in LA I still marvel at the things that he can do and the reads that he still has. So, it's great. Now I get to watch the highlights and I have zero stress because I don't have to worry about, going into a game if things are going south. It's like I get to enjoy it. And if I see a guy giving up 7-8 goals a night, I'd be like, been there, done that, not fun. Thank goodness I don't have to go through that again.
Well, and the beauty part there too, as you mentioned, like getting to watch it, there's no one way, eh? I think that's what I love about this. There's no absolutes. It's different styles, different guys, different strengths. They all work, and they can all work at exceptional levels. Last one, you mentioned the beer league. I know you got a set of gear kicking around down there in the basement. Is there any chance you ever put it on, or would that take a big alumni type situation? Are you a sniping forward now? Going to be a stay at home defenseman in beer league? You looking forward to get back on the ice in another role?
Well, I'm probably not going to play goalie in beer league. One, because I don't think my ego could handle it if I was getting scored on. So I'll admit that.
Nobody ever does, right? No goalies ever play the position again after they retire. There might be one or two ever.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I mean, it's like I said, it takes a lot out of your body, and thinking about not getting hit with pucks or anything like that sounds kind of nice. I'm actually looking forward to scoring goals. Now, I would imagine that most goalies that played for any amount of time, we all think that we're goal scorers. And I've seen myself skating as a beer league player, and I'm pretty bad. So I'm just going to try and hold my own. Maybe I'll be a defenseman and just chip it out off the window and play it safe and let the boys do the rest of the work. If I put the goalie gear back on, it's probably going to be for my kids' practice. I can take that, and I'm humble enough that if the kids are scoring on me, then that's fine with me, as long as we're having a good time. But yeah, that'll probably be it. I don't know if I qualify for those alumni games. I think I'm down the totem pole on most teams' depth chart. So it probably comes down to most of those starters just saying they have no interest, and that's when they'll give me a call.
No, they'll call you because they want a great teammate and a great person to come out and represent the team. So I'm sure one of those is coming, Curtis. It's been a great career, and with lots of ups and downs, and we can't thank you enough for sharing the journey with us a couple of times here in the In Goal Radio podcast, and the lessons from it that I know you benefited from, that I know other kids will benefit from you sharing. So I'm going to make sure I recommend that everybody goes back and listens to that first one after they listen to this one, and that they check you out on Instagram. Where else can they find you? Like if you're looking, somebody's looking to maybe, hey, I would love to, see if I can get some sessions with Curtis on video. Where can they track you down?
Yeah, Instagram's the best. I mean, there's an email on there. You can hit me up or just send me a DM. Now that I've got time on my hands, I'm pretty good about responding. I guess if no need to send anything nasty. It's nice now. You don't really get any of the awful messages when you're not costing a team games. So most of the stuff's been fun. I love interacting on there. I love posting little clips, just things that I notice. Usually it's just in the highlights and seeing some of the incredible things that goalies are continuing to do.
Awesome stuff. Okay, thanks again, Curtis, for spending the time with us. And remember, folks, check him out on Instagram. And if you want to get in touch with him about maybe learning a few things from a guy who spent 16 years in the league, reach out to him through Instagram or through those email messages. Thanks again, Curtis.
All right. Thanks, Kevin.
A couple of things that jumped out at me there, Woody, was the no video that what it felt like when Curtis was playing a great game wasn't what it looked like. I thought that was amazing. Just honesty from Curtis McElhinney.
Yeah, a little self-deprecating humor from Curtis throughout that interview as well, but that was a beauty. And I can kind of we can everyone relate? Like I totally related. I'm like, yeah, it feels like, and I know if I ever saw a video of myself, I'd be like, oh wow, you're really bad. Like you're really bad, Kevin. Like, why do you think it feels like this? But I was awesome. I loved it. And like you can tell, when you talk to him that he's going to be really good as a coach. And you can tell why, we won't say who, but as he indicated, like there were offers, he could have transitioned right into pro coaching, right in with an NHL team pretty quick. And you can tell why, right? Like he's, in addition to sort of having that feel for the room and knowing and being able to relate to guys, like he's learned a lot over his career. He's had a lot of different really impressive voices from his start with the Calgary Flames right to his finish with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and picked up a lot of different things, and just his mentality and his approach. You can tell why people think he's going to be a good goalie coach. And, now it's just sort of up to him which way he wants to take that, whether it's doing what he's doing now privately, or does he eventually want to get back in with the team? And that'll probably, as you heard, have a lot to do with his family situation. That was the other part that jumped out to me. 35 moves.
Yeah, that's crazy.
16 years. Like we forget what it does to a family and how much it's a great life, but it's not always the easiest life, especially on those around you when you're jumping all over the country like that.
And it's not just us. I mean, how many guys in the NHL can even relate to what he's gone through? So many guys come up, they play for 1 or 2 or 3 teams. They're not making 30 plus moves in a short career. That's a really unusual thing to go through. And I think the people who are looking after the game just haven't really been through it. So it's not just us. It's a unique experience. It's fascinating to learn about.
And had to prove himself, earn his spot every time he changed teams. It wasn't like a star goaltender changing teams and, okay, this is your ball. Let's go. He had to really earn his position on the roster every time he changed.
Well, and I think he talks about getting involved in some mental skills training. I think right there's an example. Imagine what he would have had to go through every single time there. The stress just involved, like a base level of stress that year in, year out, month in, month out. As you say, Darren, you're trying to prove yourself to your team. You're trying to prove yourself to your coach. You're trying to earn the next start. He has been through so much. Over the last few years, as we talk to more and more of these guys who transition from the game into coaching, I've grown to really respect what they can bring to a coaching role that goes well beyond the technical in the game. And I thought Curtis really summed it up in this interview when he talked about the fact that virtually every goaltender who comes to him, even kids now, have that skill set already in place. There's only so much you can teach them. But his ability to share his experience on the ice, the situations he's been through, the reads he's been through, I think it's absolutely invaluable and something that every young goaltender would probably love to be able to take advantage of, just picking his brain for what it's like to be out there on the ice.
The other one that jumped out at me from that, and there were a lot of takeaways, how about the call from the GM? Do you think you'll be able to play soon?
Yes.
He literally hasn't walked, and he's got a walker with just his description of the walker with the tennis balls on the knobs on the bottom of the walker to get around was like, it was so vivid, and I can picture that. And it's like, just what his body went through and why he doesn't want to play now, right? Like just looking at his gear and his hips hurt, just imagining getting into an RVH at this point too. So it was a really fascinating glimpse into the life, and what I said is going to be a really good transition for him now moving forward. He's going to be good in this role, whichever way he decides to take it.
That's got to be one of the most remarkable comebacks from injury in NHL, if not sports history.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, you can't even imagine what he had to go through there.
And then to have the trust to do it again, like to make those moves again and knowing what you did.
Well, and because he was with Columbus, not just make those moves again, but reinvent how he was moving, right? Like he changed a lot of how he played when he was in Columbus. And, in some ways, and again, folks, make sure you go listen to episode 28, because he talked a little bit about fracturing his pelvis in this interview, but we really dug into that stage of his career and all that he went through in a lot more detail in episode 28. And it is, like you said, Hutch, it's a remarkable comeback. Imagine the force required in a simple cross crease movement. Imagine how much force you're putting in and how much wear and tear you put on your body that movement can actually fracture your pelvis. Like tore it right up, basically pulled his body apart in the pelvis. It's we're all shaking our heads as we think about it, but the path back from that was hard and long, and he deserves a ton of credit for persevering through it and coming out on the other side actually a better goaltender.
Oh, to be young. Imagine being 15 and having all that skill and not being no scar tissue there in your mind or your body, like little Hutch. Hey, congratulations, Pops, on Maddie's BCGHL debut, Couch and Capitals, getting the call up and playing a game and being the star of the game.
Thank you. Feels like it's the Maddie show every week when we do this. I was embarrassed the first time you asked about his preseason game, and now here we are. Preseason game experience the first time we talked about, and then in this past week, not one but two starts in the BCHL at 15. Yeah, I just marvel when I watch it. It's fascinating to go through, and the way he thinks the game and everything he's picking up now through these experiences. I just love having a conversation with him now. He's able to point out things that I never imagined in terms of how he's learning how to read the game and how he's learning how to deal with and adapt to more challenging situations. The first game was remarkable. 51 saves on 53 shots, and first save in his first regular season start to get a win for a team that admittedly doesn't have many. What a magical night. And then came back for the next game and actually got to start against his billet brother, because we billet the goaltender for the Nanaimo Clippers. And so these two guys who live together got to face off in their second game. Didn't go Maddie's way, but talk about the use of video. The two boys were sitting on the couch at home shortly after the game was over, pouring through the video, looking at each other's plays, looking at each other's goals.
Problem is you can't skip through the guy at the other end to get to your stuff because he's sitting beside you.
No, it was mostly Cooper leading the whole thing. He's an awesome young man, committed to Dartmouth University for next season. He's a 20-year-old right now, and they've become really close, and it's been good for both of them. But Maddie said the part he actually enjoyed the most was during a timeout, he was skating past the Nanaimo bench and he was getting chirped by all the players to go back to midget. And he said he just looked at the guys and started laughing his butt off. And he could see how angry it was making the Clippers too. So I think he really enjoyed that moment. But yeah, what a special night. And hopefully there'll be another one somewhere down the road.
That would have been a good goalie go. The two of the billet and the little brother meeting at center ice.
But the big billet brother's 6'8".
They said if there was a bench, I don't think they ever could have pulled it off, but they did talk about if there was a bench clearer, they'd go down, meet at center ice. Nobody crosses center, so they don't get in trouble, and maybe pull it out and do a little rock, paper, scissors or something. Because yeah, Cooper's got some reach. Maddie's not a small man, but Cooper at 6'8" would that'd be scary.
Very cool story, very cool experience, and congratulations to Maddie Hutch for another step in his journey as we close out this little chapter. Thanks to Sense Arena VR for our feature interview with Curtis McElhinney, and of course, Source for Sports Surrey, the Hockey Shop, thehockeyshop.com. Check out the website for the Black Friday sale that's coming very soon. We'll chat with you guys next week and get an update on Carey Price, where he is in his situation returning the Montreal Canadiens, and all the eventful plays that will happen in the world of goaltending. Be good, everybody.